Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something wild, but we're leaving the late-night conspiracy theories and hoax claims at the door. We're looking at the actual serious physics behind field anomalies. Instead of asking who made these massive, complex patterns in our crops, we're going to flip the script and ask what natural forces are actually required to create them.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The existing problem. 2. The THD hypothesis. 3. Physical evidence. 4. Validation and falsification. And 5. Real-world implications. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The existing problem. We've got a massive gap in our understanding, so let's start with why the usual, simple explanations are just falling flat.
Here's the thing about ordinary natural explanations, like a random gust of wind, a normal storm, or even people trampling around. They predict irregular, messy, broken crops. But that's definitely not what we actually see in these anomalous formations. What investigators find on the ground is a highly complex triad of evidence. We're talking perfect geometric organization, plants literally heated from the inside out, and highly localized magnetic changes in the soil. There's just no way a simple gust of wind explains that whole package.
Section 2. The THD hypothesis explained. Since standard weather can't explain this wild combination of heat, magnetism, and geometry, we clearly need a new model.
Enter researcher, inventor, and author Kevin L. Brown and his Triune Harmonic Dynamics, or THD hypothesis. Brown's research is a total game changer. It gives us a completely different lens to look through. The THD hypothesis proposes that these formations are the visible footprints of a massive, coupled energy event. Specifically, it involves charged atmospheric plasma, which is basically highly energized air, locking in with telluric currents, which is just electricity naturally flowing through the ground. When that energized sky and ground electricity connect, they create an invisible, structural standing wave over the crops. Think of it like a vibrating, sustained frequency hovering right above the dirt. Now, this whole process builds up in 3 distinct steps. In phase 1, the base phase, everything is totally normal. Stable field, nothing crazy. But then we hit phase 2, the pressure phase, and things get really intense. Atmospheric electrical charge from a storm builds up above, while conductive stuff below, like subsurface water or chalk layers, pulls back. They're basically yanking at each other. Finally, we get phase 3, the integration phase. That immense pressure releases, but here's the kicker. It doesn't release as a random lightning bolt. It releases as a highly structured geometric wave of energy that rapidly heats the plants from the inside and bends them over without crushing them.
Section 3. Physical evidence and variables. So, if invisible energy fields are the culprits here, what exactly are they leaving behind?
When you get right down into the dirt and look at the crops, you see plant node elongation and expulsion cavities. Now, imagine popping a wet sponge into a microwave. The water inside heats up instantly, turns to steam, and expands outward, right? That is exactly what's happening to the moisture inside these stalks. It causes them to soften and bend instead of just snapping in half. We aren't looking at mechanical crushing from some wooden board. We are looking at rapid internal heating. And alongside that, we find localized soil magnetization. The magnetic particles in the dirt are actually dragged into entirely new patterns that perfectly trace the geometry of the formation above them.
Plus, Kevin L. Brown's research points out that these formations don't just pop up randomly. They need a very specific environmental setup to act almost like a giant battery. We look for specific pre-transition indicators: highly charged storm air, high crop moisture, and extremely conductive soil conditions. Usually, this means the field is sitting right on top of a natural chalk layer or a deep underground aquifer. Those features basically give the sky and the earth the perfect wiring to connect their currents.
Section 4. Validation and falsification. Listen, a hypothesis is just a cool story unless you can actually prove it. Any good scientific model needs a way to be tested and a way to be proven totally wrong.
The really exciting part is that we can validate this in a lab. Using the THD framework, we can hit plants with controlled microwave exposure to recreate that specific internal heating and node expansion. We can fly drones over these fields to prove the patterns perfectly match known wave interference models. We can even set up grounded, wet crop beds in a laboratory, hit them with plasma discharges, and watch the energy naturally fold the crops into these distinct shapes without a single human hand ever touching them.
But on the flip side, we have to look at falsification parameters. How does this theory fail?
Well, the entire THD hypothesis completely falls apart if we ever prove that standard thunderstorms, simple plant diseases, or everyday wind can independently create these precise, heated magnetic geometries. If you find a perfect geometric crop circle with zero heat damage and zero magnetic shifting, the theory takes a massive hit. Plain and simple, if the forces needed are no more complex than ordinary wind knocking over some wheat, then the plasma resonance theory goes right out the window.
Section 5. Real-world implications. So, what happens if this is all true? If Kevin L. Brown's model passes the test, it changes everything for science and agriculture.
The most immediate impact is that it permanently shifts the debate. It stops the endless arguments about who made these things, and it forces everyone, scientists, investigators, you name it, to treat these sites as serious, measurable physical anomalies. We're talking about real forces producing real structures.
Beyond that, the scientific impacts are absolutely huge. If we know the exact recipe, conductive ground plus atmospheric charge, we could start forecasting exactly where these formations will pop up, kind of like predicting a tornado using weather maps. We can use this to understand other crazy phenomena, like ball lightning. But maybe the biggest takeaway is application. If we can understand how invisible energy softly bends and alters plant biology without killing it, we could be looking at the absolute future of low-energy agricultural technology. It really makes you stop and wonder. If naturally coupled energy fields can instantly create precise geometric structures and completely alter plant biology in a matter of seconds, what other near-ground interactions are we currently misreading? The Earth and sky are teaming up to draw structural blueprints right into our food supply. It means our environment is way more dynamic and electric than we ever thought possible. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and keep questioning the science behind the mystery.